I'm starting, and I think then we have Glenn and Andrew are going to help us out too. So just a quick, so this is an update on WeBWorK. If you haven't used it, it's an open source online homework system, very much in some of the flavors that we've already seen today. We have about 60,000 contributed problems, mainly in mathematics, but also expanding into physics and engineering chemistry. We've got about 10 languages in the interface. There's sort of the interface, which we'll talk about, and then there's actually problems as well. But the interface can be translated to about 10 languages. And last summer, we released 2.16, and we will go with 2.17 toward the end of the summer. We're in academia, right? This is when we get things done. So, okay. So I talk a little bit about what's new, and so there's a brand new look to it. From the sort of coding side of things, we're using Bootstrap to do a lot of the styling, version 5. This allows a couple of things. If you're doing stuff on phones, for example, the mobile interface is much easier both to write and also use. We've got a new way to theme things. You'll see a couple themes today. A whole bunch of accessibility improvements, which is helpful. Quizzes, which have always been, I would say, a bit thorny. We've got a bunch of different ways of handling these. So the first thing is an auto submit. If the quiz is getting toward the end and we're running out of time, it will automatically submit the current answers in the quiz for the student. And then at the end, in addition, which is also helpful mainly from the student point of view, there's confirmation dialogues. How do we start a quiz, and giving some warnings about coming toward the end of them, so much easier sort of interactions with it. If you've ever used WeBWorK, there's sort of our standard library of problems, and there's something called contrib, which are maybe less polished. They haven't been vetted so much, but as I'll show you in just a second, you'll be able to use these as easily as other ones. And then again, everybody's been talking about integrating in, say, Moodle and other CMSs. We have a bunch of these enhancements to do this. Basically being able to kind of keep students within the course instead of accessing things different ways. As an instructor, there's a course level customization, which I will also show a screenshot on in just a second. There's also, on the problem side of things, which we call the PG side, there's some drag drop problems. There's a new graph tool that came out last summer. We've got some improvements to that. And then entering formulas, there's things called MathQuill. Glenn's going to show all this stuff in just a second. So let me just show you a screenshot of the library browser. This allows, again, to include the standard problems, which we call the open problem library, and then also contrib. So this is now kind of built in if you're accepting problems from contrib in that. So this allows a much broader number of problems we can look at. And I just wanted to show the Lti configuration. It's got its own configuration panel now with some of the things that an instructor can sort of set up without having to either write code or have an administrator do, which is also quite nice. So there is a little bit of behind the scenes that needs to get this going. So I think at that, I will turn it over to Glenn. Glenn, do you want to share your screen then? I'll get out.
All right, so I'm going to demonstrate these things in action that Peter just mentioned. So, of course, the new user interface. This is the Fitchburg State theme. This is hosted on Peter's server. It's very easy to create a new theme. Just a couple of variables need to be changed. Of course, you can see if you've used WeBWorK before, you probably see things already that are looking different. I'm going to first start by looking at a quiz. So before, all quiz versions would be listed on this page with all the homework sets, and it got a bit cluttered. Now, all those quiz versions are on a separate page. You see previous versions will be listed if you have any. A little bit more information. Of course, one of the nice things is now you can have a set header or set info, which is displayed. Previously, that was not an option for quizzes. Click on Start New Test, of course, to start a new test. Your time limit up there. So this looks much the same. This is a gateway quiz. Got several of the problems he mentioned. The drag and drop macro has been improved and is now an officially supported macro. Previously, it was just hidden in the OPL. One of the features that was added to the drag and drop macro is that you can now have more than just 2 bins or buckets, as the developer decided to call them. Here we have 3 buckets. You can sort this, the dihedral set, into its cosets. That's probably not right. You'll notice this just popped up, the time remaining. So that's now a toast instead of an somewhat intrusive dialogue that popped up and stopped everything. You can continue work while that is there. And doesn't interfere, but lets you know what's going on. Now the next, the graph tool macro, this was introduced in the last release, allows you to graph objects. One of the new features with this is it now has keyboard interaction. So you can use a keyboard to move points around. Tab and Shift tab can be used to move between points on the graphed objects. Of course, you can also start new graphed objects. There are also some new tools. This problem demonstrates that you can shade. That wasn't new. You can have already existing graphed objects that are part of the problem. That's not new. The new tools are the point tool. That was actually developed by Alex Jordan at Pacific Community College, just for graphing points. Then there is the 3-point quadratic tool. I'm going to be interrupted here in a second. One of the new features is that there's an auto submit. This happens about 10 seconds before the end of the grace period, and there it just happened on me. I set this to be a short term. That was something that's been requested. Going on here, the 4-point cubic tool. You can graph cubics and quadratics in different ways. Previously, there was just the vertex and another point graphing method. Now we have the 3-point quadratic tool. And I ran out of time, so I'm going to have to start a new version. So one of the other features is that if you're in a test in progress and hit submit or grade test, instead of it just automatically submitting, you get a little dialogue that lets you confirm that that's really what you want to do. One of the problems we used to have was students would hit grade test when really all they wanted to do was save their answer on a particular problem and grade the whole test, and then they can't do anything more. So this lets them know that's not what they wanted. That was particularly a problem when gateway quizzes had multiple pages. So those are the features of gateway quizzes. Some other things, MathQuill improvements. MathQuill was introduced actually 2 releases ago. But there are some problems that a lot of people have complained about. One of them is mixed numbers. This problem demonstrates all these things in one problem. You can now use mixed numbers efficiently. One of the advantages is you can easily type in a mixed number by using spaces. Previously, spaces were completely disabled. Now you can use spaces at the root level. So you can enter a mixed number by putting a space in between easily. One of the other things is units. when units are expected in a problem. Previously, that had a lot of issues. Now they'll just work. You can type them in a very natural way. Previously, you had to use the text button on the dialog and enter it as text, which was a bit annoying. And the last thing is scientific notation. Previously, that just failed because of some additional parentheses MathQuill injected that the PG math objects didn't deal well with. Now those are no longer input. Instead, different handling of order of operations is done on the PG side. So things should work much better with problems that had some of those different inputs that were expected. All right, so I think I'm out of time, but those are the main features. Some other features, things work much better on mobile devices. I'll quickly show that. Bring this down to a narrow screen. The nav works better on mobile devices than it did before, and things generally work well, look better. The layout is much more adaptive. All right, I'll turn it over to Andrew to finish this off.
Thanks, Glenn. Peter, do you mind putting the slides back up?
Cancel. I'm working on it. Let's see. Oops. Is that up?
There we go.
Okay. Do you need me to scroll?
Yes, thank you. Pass the demo, thank you. All right. So there's several ways we'd like to announce for people to get involved with our development efforts. We've been working on a complete redesign of WeBWorK, WeBWorK 3. We've got a code camp coming up this coming Thursday. For anybody who'd be interested in joining us, we're going to talk about how to set up the development environment and kind of get everyone used to where we're at. The WeBWorK 3 demo, I don't think we have time for that. But things are coming along nicely. And we'll have other code camps happening this summer as well. Maybe one on the PG side where we work on developing the structure that fuels the problems that authors can write. And maybe one as well for the open problem library, because similar to what Christian was mentioning, organizing a library is a cumbersome task, and we've got a lot of work to do in that direction as well. We've got Slack channel set up if you'd like to stay abreast of what we're working on, or if you're just looking to get started and have questions about getting things set up. We have these channels available. I can actually put that in the chat. Oh, and do we have anything after this, Peter?
Here's
Yeah.
some info.
just our websites, right? So we've got openwebwork.org, the GitHub repository, and Peter's email. So if you have any questions or concerns, Peter's going to be the point of contact for that, I guess.
I'm also, if you're interested in the WeBWorK 3, I'm sort of running that this Thursday, and you can email me about that. I already see that there's somebody here at the talk is coming Thursday. I think Zach, I saw. So
yeah, so thank you very much, Peter, Glenn, and Andrew. It was really interesting presentation of the development. I really support that we giving students some info when they are very near the end with the quizzes, because sometimes they are confused and under stress when they're solving something. So all these messages are really important, even though for us sometimes it is it seems like too much. Yeah. Any other questions or remarks, comments here? If not, then yeah, Debbie.
Hi,
Yes. Please.
yeah, I put it in the Moodle too.
Okay. Just please ask.
Sure. This is not entirely specific to WeBWorK, but has anyone found a way to administer the gateway quizzes in conjunction with a lockdown browser? Because from what I understand, if your students authenticate through LTI in your VLE or LMS, when you're in the lockdown browser in a quiz, the LTI authentication doesn't work. So I'm wondering, for the people who give quizzes, how do you make sure the students are not using Wolfram Alpha on the side or something like that, even if they're in person taking the quiz?
Yeah, at this point, I don't know about lockdown browsers. I haven't looked into that. I don't think it works well, and we haven't done anything on that end.
Okay, maybe some